WFLA Now will begin momentarily. WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Live on WFLA Now, this is Hey JB. Here's JB Buno.
Brian Laundrie's notebook confession tells us a story. But is it the real story, the whole story? Or is it the story he wanted the world to believe? Plus, the notebook leads to the emergence of a letter Laundrie received from his mother, Roberta, allegedly connected to what happened to Gabby Petito. The content of the letter, of course, now making the waves on social media. Good afternoon, everybody. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. Happy Saturday to everybody joining us here, wherever you are watching from, whether it's here in Tampa Bay, here in Florida, here in the United States, or perhaps you're joining us from around the world. As I noted, today is Saturday, but Friday was the day that we had massive developments in the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie story. A big day for news overall. A lot of news going on, of course, yesterday being Friday, June 24, 2022. But we're turning our attention again to Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie to discuss more of what transpired in the afternoon and evening, even to the late night hours of yesterday, Friday, June 24th. And of course, this all began with the emergence of the notebook that we have here on the right side of your screen. 8 pages of Brian Laundrie's last words, as confirmed, of course, by the FBI. The FBI releasing, of course, their words in their release in January, saying that this was the final message that Brian Laundrie left behind to the world, and indicated that he had, of course, claimed responsibility for ending Gabby Petito's life. There's been, of course, a lot of discussion about the notebook. We're going to be focusing a lot on the notebook. We're also going to be talking about what happened after the emergence of these 8 pages in the Petito lawyer, that being Pat Riley, calling in to WFLA Now and discussing and really revealing the existence of a letter that he put, in his words, were odd, a letter that existed between Roberta Laundrie, who allegedly authored this letter, and gave to her son, Brian Laundrie. According to Riley, it is a letter that is connected to what happened to Gabby Petito. It is absent of a date, which we will discuss. However, it had a curious title on the envelope that read something to the effect of "Burn after you read this." We're going to talk about all of this over the next hour or so. NewsNation's Brian Entin will be joining us in about 15 minutes' time. He's joining us remotely. He will be joining us at 2:30, at which time we will be launching across all platforms. We're live here first on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, and hello to everybody joining us on the WFLA YouTube page. I see Fiona using hashtag HeyJB, Ellen or Elaine, I'm sorry, using hashtag HeyJB. And again, for those of you perhaps just joining us for the first time, my screen shows me hashtag HeyJB comments kind of brighter now. So I see those comments because those are the comments that we feature on screen. Why do we do this? Because we don't want to feature everyone's comments. We only want to feature the comments where you, as commenters, viewers, wherever you're watching from, give us consent to use your comment, animate your name, your profile picture, and your comment on screen. So the hashtag system that we have here on WFLA Now, we use to, parse through these comments and determine which ones we're going to animate on screen and bring into our conversation. A lot of them, of course, come in the form of questions. Now, when I go home every night, I don't just look at the hashtag HeyJB comments. Right now, live, I'm looking at them. But when I go home at night, I review the comments all over social media underneath our live streams. And I got more perspective. And when we're in reporting mode like we are yesterday, of course, we're trying to get as much good information out there, credible information out there. But reading through some of the comments and understanding how you're digesting and processing all of this information is enlightening for us, all of us. And I was up into the late night hours last night reading through some of your comments, but one of the most telling things that I had was an Instagram poll. I decided to put an Instagram poll on my WFLA-JB Instagram page, and let's see if we can get an update on the exact numbers on that. I'm going to go to my Instagram page here for a second, and I put a poll on there that said, where is it? Here it is. Do you believe Brian's story about Gabby's death? And 95% said no. 95% of people do not believe this story. And we were discussing the story. We read out the entirety of the 8-page, that's in a previous stream. If you're looking for us reading through the notebook, that was the last stream. It took 7 or 8 minutes to read through it. I don't want to read through it again. We're going to try to stay as current as possible here and talk about the latest developments. There are a couple of minor developments I'm going to get to here in just a second. But it was interesting to me to read through all of your comments and then see that Instagram poll and just get a better idea as to just how many people do not believe this story to be true. As I noted in the open, is it the story that is the real story? Is it the whole story? Is it part of the story? Or is it the story that Brian Laundrie wanted us to believe? Wanted his family and Gabby Petito's family to believe? How much of it is real? A little bit? A lot of it? All of it? None of it? Right now, we can go through some of the parts of this notebook to get a better understanding of whether or not it's rooted in reality. And we will do so. I'm looking forward to a friend of the program, friend of mine, and of course, somebody who has been on this story, boots on the ground, was there near where Gabby Petito's body was found. Brian Entin is going to be joining us, and I really look forward to really getting into that conversation here in just a moment. But what I would like to do is go over a point but I'm going to read a lot of your hashtag HJB comments. I see them really coming in. We're going to get to them. I promise. It's what we do here. It's the reason we have the hashtag. But I just want to go over something that I feel has been a little bit lost in the social media activity that I have seen in the aftermath of this notebook coming out. These 8 pages of this notebook that the FBI tells us is Brian Laundrie's final words. And it's this. Right now, we have this story from Brian Laundrie. As I noted yesterday, this is going to be very similar to what I said yesterday, but with a little bit of a different twist here to make this point. We have these words from Brian Laundrie. He is one of 2 people that were there when this all happened. The other person being his fiancée, Gabby Petito, who is deceased, who he admits in this notebook, he ended her life. And in his words, it was something that he believed to be at the time merciful, but then he would later admit that he panicked, and he did so as a result of Gabby allegedly being involved in some accident near a creek, getting soaking wet, being extremely cold, needing to be spooned by a fire, doing things to keep her body temperature up. Of course, we've been dissecting this now for the last 12 or so hours. However, I want to talk about something that is really just something that is stuck in my head as far as what happened after this story. Brian tells us parts of the story, but there's, of course, so much that we already know that isn't in this letter. And it's the aftermath of what happened to Gabby. And the fact that Brian, in the aftermath of killing his fiancée, he's saying that he did so mercifully, okay, had all of these opportunities where he had a choice to do the right thing or to do the wrong thing. Many opportunities. And I was going through them in my mind last night on the ride home. I was driving home, and I'm going through the timeline in my head trying to put myself, you can't, no one can put themselves in Brian Laundrie's shoes because you don't know what was going on in his mind. You don't know how close this is to the actual truth, but you can try to put yourself in his frame of mind in the aftermath of his fiancée being murdered at his hands. And I can't help but think about all of the opportunities that existed in the aftermath of this event happening in Wyoming. And all of the opportunities that there were for Brian Laundrie to do either the right thing or the wrong thing. I want to make this point to our audience, and then, of course, we'll bring in Brian Entin, and we'll continue on with our coverage and get to your #HeyJB, #HeyBrian comments. After this occurs, after Brian kills Gabby in a form of panic, he says, we're going to take him for this exercise. We are going to take this at face value. We're going to take this for what it is and just say that this is what happened to Gabby Petito and what happened with Brian Laundrie. Let's focus on what happened afterwards and the choices that were presented to Brian Laundrie. He has a choice of what to do with Gabby's body. There's the right thing to do and there's the wrong thing to do. And this is going to be the theme of this. 7 instances. We're going to go over all 7. The right thing and the wrong thing. This is the woman you're supposed to spend the rest of your life with. This is the woman you're supposed to be with. This is the woman you've pledged to commit yourself to. Good, bad, and ugly times exist in relationships, and you are supposed to grit your teeth to get through all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this, of course, was something that occurred while on this cross-country road trip. But something terrible happens, and Gabby is deceased. Her body is there in the wilderness. Why are you leaving it? Why is it there? Why don't you retrieve the body? Why don't you return it? Why don't you bring it with you? Why do you leave Gabby Petito's body out there in the spot near where this tragic event occurred? Whether you believe it to be an accident or an intentional act, something bad and terrible happened here between these two. Why, if this is the love of your life, you say it even in this note that you write sometime afterwards, you say it in your final 8-page confession, if this is someone you love so much, you love them so much that you can't be without them, why don't you bring her body with you? Why are you leaving it out there? Is the first thing. So Brian has the opportunity to do the right thing or the wrong thing. The right thing is to take the body of the love of your life and do something with it and bring it with you. He does the wrong thing. He leaves it out there. That's number 1. Number 2, Brian, let's say, we're going to talk with Brian Entin about cell signal and maybe your battery being dead. But upon returning to civilization, if you will, you have the opportunity to contact authorities. As our commenter Elizabeth Gregory says, why not call 911? I just saw that flash on my screen because it has the hashtag and I can see them just very clearly here. Brian doesn't contact 911. He doesn't contact authorities. His choice is to leave Gabby's body out there and return home in the van. There's the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. If this was an accident, why aren't you contacting authorities saying, in a panic, contacting authorities and saying, this is a tragic accident that occurred. My fiancée, something terrible happened to her. She hit her head. She fell in the water. She's ice cold. I did everything I could to save her life. She's out there. I need help. Help, help, help. Brian didn't do that. The right thing would have been to contact authorities or get help of some kind. The wrong thing would have been to just leave. The wrong thing to do would have been to leave. He left. Instance number 3. Brian sends texts from Gabby's phone to her mom, and in the words of the FBI, deceives law enforcement. The right thing to do would have been to contact Gabby's family. The wrong thing to do is to try to cover it up. The FBI in January put out their notice, their final notes in this investigation as they closed it without criminal charges being filed, saying that Brian deceived law enforcement in the aftermath of Gabby's death by sending out these text messages. The right thing to do would have been to own up to it. The wrong thing is deceiving her family and deceiving law enforcement. Next point in the timeline. Brian returns home, still does not speak to Gabby's family. He returns home to Northport, makes the long trip back. That's a long road trip. You have a lot of time to think and determine for yourself what is the right course of action and the wrong course of action. This long road trip. And after all those hours on the road, returning in the van that you were on a cross-country road trip with the said love of your life, your fiancée, that van, you return home, and after all of that thinking on the road, you still don't call Gabby's family, and you still don't contact local police or the authorities. Next point in time, Brian chooses to go on vacation to Fort DeSoto, the campground, with his family, as if things are normal, as if he's there at Fort DeSoto. As we heard from Cassie Laundrie, they were there having a good time with family, enjoying a beautiful Florida sunset, while Gabby Petito's family is suffering, desperate to try to get information as to where Gabby is. Brian is on a beach, kicking back and watching a sunset, spending time with family. Now he alludes in his note that he returned home to spend time with family, but to go just on vacation to spend it on a beach at Fort DeSoto campground, when you've already had all of these opportunities to do the right thing, once again, we have Brian Laundrie choosing between the right path and the wrong path, and he chooses the wrong path. Number 6, Brian intentionally eludes investigators as he leaves his home. As Northport police are starting to knock on that door in Northport and starting to investigate the disappearance of Gabby Petito, Brian eludes investigators, does not cooperate with investigators that are quite literally attending now, or attending, being on his block and going to his house. Instead, goes to the Carlton Reserve. And then lastly, Brian walks into the Carlton Reserve, and claims his own life. The right thing to do would have been to turn yourself in. The right thing to do would have been to contact Gabby Petito's family. The right thing to do would have been to own up to what had happened. And he chose avoiding prosecution, avoiding the law, avoiding punishment, and he chose to claim his own life. Suicide is never the answer. Taking your own life is never the answer. And that was his choice of action. 7 instances, moments in time, and there's many more, but we just isolated these 7 to talk with you guys about all of these chances where Brian could have done something right. And every time he did the wrong thing. Joining us on Zoom, NewsNation's Brian Entin. Brian, I watched you on Banfield last night. I also heard your interview with Pat Riley, the attorney for the Petitos and the Schmitz. I know that we are working the phones, trying to get the very latest information. I have some new developments here. Want to welcome you into the broadcast, welcome you into the live stream, say hello to you as we're about to launch on Facebook Live, but allow me just say hello to you and check in. How you doing out there?
Hey, I'm doing okay. The first thing I noticed was like you've got the suit and tie on a Saturday. I assumed you'd be at home with your cats, and this would be a little more of a casual affair. But you're all dressed up.
You know what, Brian? I thought about going casual. I really did, but maybe one day.
You're such a tie guy. You're such a tie guy. You always look so dapper. You have the tie on. It's like you really, you know how to pull that off.
I was talking with somebody last night about how this has just been a terrible 8-9 months. But if there's one thing, it's great to have made a friend in Brian Entin, and getting to know Brian a little bit behind the scenes has been a treat. And folks, the real deal. Brian, we're going to go into a 60-second countdown. Stick around. We'll be right back as we engage our Facebook Live audience here on WFLA Now. Don't go anywhere.
WFLA Now will begin momentarily. WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Live on WFLA Now, this is Hey JB. Here's JB Buno.
The most I want to say is that there was an offer to assist Brian with some things in that letter.
Those are the words from the lawyer of Gabby Petito's family, pointing to new evidence the FBI collected, a letter delivered to Brian Laundrie from his mother Roberta, in which he was allegedly offered some help of some kind regarding Gabby Petito. That's the claim from that side, plus a reevaluation of Brian Laundrie's words. Are they the real story? We're live here on WFLA Now to break it down, and joining us here remotely on Zoom is Brian Entin of News Nation. Brian, Friday, of course, being a day where so much came out, a good chance for you and I to sit down, go over all of it, go over all the latest. First and foremost, welcome to WFLA Now. Once again, good to have you back on the program. And now that you've had an opportunity, hopefully a good night's sleep to process all of this, what's something that's really sticking out to you in the aftermath of the 8 pages of Brian Laundrie's confession being released, and also now a possible second or even third confession and this letter that allegedly exists between Roberta and Brian?
Thanks for having me, JB. Yeah, yesterday was crazy. A lot of surprises that I didn't expect. Obviously, we had a feeling that the notebook was going to come out yesterday because we knew that both sides were going to the FBI to collect the evidence. And there was a feeling that that Mr. Bertolino would put it out. But I wasn't expecting it to be so long, 8 pages. I wasn't expecting this whole mercy killing craziness. And the fact that he had the story that Gabby was injured. I didn't know any of that was coming. But the real surprise yesterday was definitely the Petito's attorney, coming out with this new information about another letter, a letter from Roberta to Brian Laundrie, and then also the revelation that there could be 2 more confessions that we don't know about yet, one of which he says is on a digital device. So that was all new information yesterday that truthfully, I didn't see any of that coming.
Me neither. And it was a total surprise as well to our audience. Brian, what do you make of, I've done a couple of different polls across a couple of different platforms. You're very prevalent on social media, as am I. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing. There is a lot, I would say an overwhelming number of people out there that do not believe Brian Laundrie's last words. What do you make of the response from the public? So many people, of course, who have been following you, so many people that have been following the two of us over the course of this, that just don't believe this story to be actually what happened that night in August of last year.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The first time I read it, through the 8 pages, that was my first thought. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This can't be, especially because, like, in my mind, I was going back to the place where Gabby Petito was killed just because I'd been out there. So I was visualizing it as I was reading the letter, and it just wasn't adding up. The creek there was close to where the van was, maybe a 5-minute walk. Where her body was found, where she was murdered, was maybe a 10-minute walk from the van. It's remote, but it's also right off of this dirt road where there are a ton of campers coming and going. And then right up the dirt road is a pretty major highway. The cell phone service is good there. So this whole theory that there was no one to help, I don't buy it, having been out there. And again, the main reason is because of the proximity to the van, and then also the cell phone service being good. You could have made a call, you could have done something. It doesn't add up to me. You
were there, and of course, I saw the video that you posted again on Twitter. Being in that spot. Brian claims in his 8 pages that he did everything, including making a fire and spooning her and trying to stay by the fire to make sure it wouldn't go out. Do you remember any site whatsoever of a spot where a fire might have existed?
I mean, yeah, there probably were. So it's a popular area for people who are camping and exploring. So there were spots with fires. When I was out there, I called Luis, my photographer, yesterday, because we're not in the same city right now at the moment. as like, let's just go back to that moment, remind me of everything. I want to make sure my recollection was right. We took a lot of time out there because we were trying to find the exact spot where Gabby's body was. And there are a lot of people who have gone out there and put crosses in other spots thinking that it was the spot. So it took us a long time to find the right spot. But what I remembered was going back from that spot to, we were parked right where the van was. And again, I was like, Luis, it was like a 5 to 10 minute walk, right? And he's like, yeah, definitely no more than 10 minutes. So, you know, the building a fire and being in the middle of nowhere, it just, granted, we were there in the daylight. I'm sure it's really dark at night. But it's just not that big of an area, honestly, from where the van was to where they were. And that's just what I kept thinking. Like,
not as vast and intimidating as it's been made out to be.
It's not like they went on this hour or 2 hour hike into the middle of nowhere, far from the van. I mean, it was all really right there.
I want to talk to, I mean, if you were joining, for the folks on YouTube, you saw this part. I was going off about all the different moments in time where Brian had an opportunity to do the right thing. And in the aftermath of this, choosing to do the wrong thing, even if something tragic had occurred with he and Gabby, all of these moments where he could have done the right thing, including not leaving her body out there, not leaving the body of his fiancée out there just to be, he mentioned at the end of his note to be torn apart by animals. How could you want that for the love of your life, your fiance? So he leaves the body out there. He doesn't contact authorities. He deceives law enforcement by sending this text message from Gabby's phone to Gabby's family, in particular to her mom, Nicole Schmidt. All of these chances in the aftermath of this to do the right thing. And at every stage, as we just illustrated on YouTube, all of these moments, he chooses to do what most I would believe would say is the wrong thing. What do you make of the actions and all the chances, Brian, that Laundrie had to do something such as turn himself in or have conversations about the tragic accident that allegedly occurred, and tell that to Gabby's family? All of these chances were just came and went, and he did not do the right thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Last night on Banfield, we had a psychotherapist on to kind of dissect the letter. And her take on it was, that he was trying to get away. It seems like he was trying to get away with it in the beginning. I mean, sending the text messages, using the debit card, coming back to Florida, meeting with the family. And it seems like in the letter, he was sort of concocting the story to get some sympathy. Like you said, he had a lot of chances to do the right thing. And it seems like he was trying to deceive people, see if he could get away with it. That's what she was saying. And then when he realized he wasn't going to be able to anymore, it's like, let's concoct this story where, I can try to protect my parents and maybe get some sympathy out of this whole thing. Let's
turn our attention now to what happened afterwards. You and I are processing this 8 pages. I'm sure it took some time, I'm sure, for both of us to really fully process it and try to, piece together where it fits with all the facts that you and I have collected over the course of our reporting on this story. And of course, then it was on WFLA Now yesterday and spoke to you as well, Brian. Pat Riley called us both to discuss the existence of unknown evidence, unknown to you and I, really unknown to the world. We had no idea this evidence existed. Let's talk first about this letter. A letter that we now have really from both sides, that this letter does in fact exist. It's been confirmed to have existed from Bertolino. He acknowledged the existence of it in text messages to me, and I believe you as well, Brian. This letter that had an envelope, and it was titled "Burn After You Read This." It is a letter that Riley told you was odd, Brian. He told me that the contents of the letter were extreme. So he told you odd, he told me extreme, but he said that it contains some offer of help from Roberta to Brian concerning Gabby Petito. There's no date on it. Now, I want to make this clear. I sent Stephen Bertolino a text message, and I'm going to read it out here just for transparency. I said, "Hi, Steve. Sorry to bother you on a Saturday. Considering you have released Brian's notebook, would you be able to provide me with the Roberta letter? I know that in your letter yesterday, you mentioned transparency. We would like a copy of that letter if you are willing to provide it." And so we have submitted now our request to get this letter from Stephen Bertolino. The letter is in the possession of the Laundries after, of course, Bertolino and Riley went to the FBI Tampa yesterday to retrieve evidence collected over the course of the FBI's investigation. And also as well, I talked to Pat Riley as well about what happens about now that the Laundries have this letter. What happens now if it's called upon in a court of law? Let's say that this does proceed to a jury trial. The civil lawsuit proceeds to a jury trial. How does that letter emerge in court? And I was told by Riley that they will call on both Bertolino to present it, and that Bertolino gave his word yesterday, apparently at FBI Tampa, that it was not going to be destroyed, lost, or that something wasn't going to happen to it, that the Roberta letter was going to be maintained and it's going to be kept. It's not going to be destroyed, despite the fact that it has the words "burn after you read this" or something to that effect on the envelope. And also, too, that the FBI Tampa has photographs and digital copies of that Roberta letter as well. So even if something were to happen to the physical letter, the digital letter exists and it's in federal possession. So what do you make of this letter from Roberta? Do you think Bertolino is going to release it to you and I, Brian? I mean, I would say that that's relatively unlikely, maybe possible. If he believes in transparency, maybe he does release it.
I mean, he's a bit unpredictable, as you know. So I could see it going either way. If he thinks it's going to come out some other way, maybe he would release it. What I found interesting when I talked to Mr. Riley last night was that he said that Mr. Bertolino, the look on his face when that letter was in evidence was shock, and that he says Mr. Bertolino was not expecting it, which I found to be very, very interesting, that he said Mr. Bertolino looked shocked. And then he also said, I think you said, I think I don't have my notes in front of me and I can't look at my phone because I'm on the Zoom, but he said something about an offer, that it was an offer from Roberta to Brian. And then he told me, and it was like I was trying to pull it out of him because he didn't have the letter in front of him. And he really didn't want to talk that much about it, but like kind of did. So I was like trying really hard. And the most I got out of him was he said something to the effect of, Roberta said, "I would bake a cake and put a saw in it,
right?
If you end up in jail," something like that, which I thought was really weird, which again was interesting because Mr. Bertolino, when he responded to the letter to us, said it was a letter from a long time ago before the trip. But like, why would Roberta be talking about jail if this letter was even before their trip? But then I've seen on Twitter some people saying some of this has to do with possibly movie references. So I don't really know what to make of it. Again, it came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it. It's certainly very, very interesting. And I guess if this civil lawsuit moves forward, that could be a way we could see this letter. That could be this could become part of it. I was thinking this morning about the civil lawsuit. And the hearing this week about the motion to dismiss. It's interesting this stuff wasn't in the lawsuit, which makes me think like this is all new. I mean, I'm not even sure did the Petito side fully know about it, because you would think that that's something they would have put in the lawsuit.
We know that at this stage, I've been told that at this stage with where they are with the lawsuit, that they're not at the presentation of evidence stage, that they're just stating their claims, but
that makes sense. Yeah. So maybe they were kind of saving it.
Maybe we're hearing now what's been in their back pocket, what they've been sitting on for so long. Also, I want to point out as well regarding this odd, extreme, whatever words used to describe it, Roberta letter. When we texted, I think he sent you the same response too, Brian, but when we initially reached out to Bertolino yesterday for comment about the fact that the envelope said on it, burn after you read this, which I mean leads us all to believe that the contents of this letter were not meant to be known by anybody other than Brian Laundrie, that Roberta had full intention of this being a one-way message and then it being destroyed upon it being received by her son Brian. The words, or something to the effect of burn after you read this, being on the cover of the envelope, Bertolino had this to say: "I do know it's a movie." And what she wrote on the cover of a letter to Brian many months before the trip had the title of a movie on there. And so there is a George Clooney, Brad Pitt, John Malkovich, Tilda Swinton movie by the name of Burn After Reading. I don't know. That might be the legal tactic that Bertolino is setting up here, but that was.
He certainly came up with it fast. If that was, I mean, you know. And you sent me that screen grab of like the poster from that movie.
Yeah.
Is it an old? I don't know anything about the movie. Is it an old movie? Do you know? Is it?
No, I haven't seen it. Other than I know that people were commenting at me yesterday saying it's a good movie, and now I'm. People are saying, "Oh, go watch it." But I mean, again, we're staying focused on the subject matter here. I have a lot to watch on Netflix, and I am behind on so many different things. People getting me to watch so many various shows. So perhaps I'll add that to the list. But regardless, that is the response from Stephen Bertolino. And then I want to get into the hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyBrian comments here in just a moment. But then the last thing that came out yesterday is Riley making claims of a second, and then to you, Brian, potentially even a third version of a confession that Brian Laundrie left behind. We know of one that is in the form of that is on a digital device. We believe it is something that is perhaps written out on a digital device. And Riley indicated to me that it's not something that fully adds up with the notebook confession, the 8 pages that were released yesterday by Bertolino.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. Again, it's kind of like when we thought we knew everything or most of everything, now we're learning there's more, which I had heard rumblings of for quite some time, like, oh, just wait till your FOIA comes back, your Freedom of Information Act request from the FBI, which is going to take forever because you know how the federal government is, and it's like a nightmare. So there are these little things now trickling, possibly 2 other confessions. So, you know, again, I think if this,
I think you're breaking up a little bit here, Brian.
Oh,
can you repeat that last point? You were breaking up there a bit. Hopefully we get a better signal.
Sorry, can you hear me, JB?
I think I got you.
I was just saying, I think I might be, am I back?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. No, I was just saying that there's been a lot that's come out that I didn't expect. We had heard rumblings to, you know, be on the lookout. And I was just saying if the civil suit moves forward, I think we're gonna see a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and again, as a reminder, Judge Hunter W. Carroll says he'll release his decision within 2 weeks of this past Wednesday, which gives us about roughly 10 or so days before the decision is released by Judge Carroll. All right, let's open up now. We've got Brian Entin with us for another 10 or so minutes. Let's open it up now to Q&A. I got my eyes, when I'm looking here, folks, when my eyes are looking right here, that is us paying attention to the Facebook Live and YouTube Live comment section. Want to now introduce as many hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyBrian comments as possible. And we'll start here. Why don't we start, where's the audience bigger? We've got, I think we've got more people joining us on YouTube, so we will start with YouTube. Let's get to Gypsy's comment. Hashtag HeyJB. My thoughts are it can't be too damning or we would see the mother arrested. Why do you think this letter is so shocking? I bring up Gypsy's comment here to begin with, talking about the Roberta letter, because she makes an excellent point. This was in the FBI's possession. If there was something incriminating with this piece of evidence that would lead them to believe that Roberta Laundrie committed a crime, then of course the FBI is going to proceed with charges. The FBI had this evidence in their possession for months and didn't file criminal charges, and now of course it's being presented potentially in a civil lawsuit. So this is a good point here to bring up, Brian.
Yeah, I agree with Gypsy. I agree with you. I thought the same thing. had all the evidence, they had the public pressure, and they chose not to press criminal charges with the evidence they had. So I would think that, yeah, they've looked all of this stuff over from a criminal perspective. How it fits into the possible civil suit, we'll see. But yeah, I agree.
I have to recheck the dates, but Beetle says, #KJB, what about Brian's trip home in August? Now, let's not forget, Brian did come home to Tampa Bay and then returned back to the cross-country road trip that he was on with his fiancée. I was thinking about this, and I'm glad Beetle brought this up, because I was thinking about this on the way home last night too. Is the letter, the Roberta letter, connected to Brian's trip back? Because people were asking, and I don't know if you got this from Pat, Brian, but people were asking, if this letter was sent via postal service, or if it was delivered to Brian, or if it was handed to Brian physically. We don't know how this envelope made it from Roberta to Brian. But if there was this return trip home, could that have been an opportunity for this letter to pass from one person to the other? It's worth noting, too, that there's a disagreement on when the letter was written. Bertolino saying that the letter was written many months before the trip. Meanwhile, we've got Pat Riley saying he believes that it occurred after Gabby Petito was killed. So we have this comment here from Beetle about Brian's trip home that people sometimes forget about.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know that Mr. Riley told me that the letter was found in the van, because I was confused at first when he started talking about it. Was it with Brian out at the reserve when he was found? No, he said it was in the van, and the FBI got it from the van. So that's sort of the answer to that part of the question. But in terms of how it fits in, yeah, was it given to him when he came home on that trip? We don't know. But yeah, a lot of people do forget about that trip. Remember, Gabby was staying in the hotels in Salt Lake City, and Brian came back for a short time. So
let's get to this one from Cammie. #HeyJB, #HeyBrian. I think the reason there were no charges is because it's not a crime to offer to cover up a crime. It is a crime when someone actually does help. Lawyer says it was assistance with Gabby. Again, a good point. And it's got to be incriminating evidence for there to be a crime against Roberta Laundrie. It's one of the themes that has been ever present for months now, Brian, is this the public vilifying Chris and Roberta Laundrie, and people wanting there to be some accountability for the actions, or really their inactions, in the aftermath of Gabby Petito's death and Brian Laundrie returning home. That's really the basis of the civil lawsuit that was filed. So many people just want to hear from the Laundries. So many people want to know why they didn't do more, including, of course, perhaps no one more than Nicole Schmidt, Joe Petito, and the entire Petito and Schmidt families.
Yeah, I think the question is, from a criminal perspective, the burden of proof to say there was a crime, did they sort of walk right up to the line and, not technically commit a crime? And, I asked Mr. Bertolino earlier this week when we had him on Banfield. A lot of people say, think what you want about Mr. Bertolino, but a lot of people said, while you might not like him, was he a really good lawyer for them, in the sense that he has sort of protected them up until this point from facing any criminal charges? Whatever he's telling them not to talk, telling them behind the scenes, how to handle this and to just stay totally silent. He perhaps did a good job, legally speaking. But when you start thinking about ethics, I think most people can agree. I mean, what I always go back to in my mind with this story, that with the parents, that I always go back to this when I'm thinking about this. The fact that the Laundries were close to Gabby Petito, thought of her like a daughter, that they were engaged, that she lived in their house for so long. I do not understand how you would ignore the Petitos during that time. I get that it is a mother and a father's nature to protect their son, but you loved Gabby. She lived in your house. I cannot understand how you could just stay silent that long, how you wouldn't wake up in the middle of the night after 2 weeks and say, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. And call Nicole Schmidt or call the FBI or whatever, Obviously Mr. Bertolino was there in the background telling them not to do it, but it's just hard to imagine.
And let's not forget that Bertolino was giving legal advice, of course, to Brian, that he had conversations with Brian upon his return home to the Tampa Bay area, to Northport, Florida. You know, there's also...
Yeah, and I don't know if you... Sorry to interrupt
you,
baby. I don't know if you saw during the interview with Bertolino earlier this week, he said, and this is like the second time he said it to me, maybe one day I'll tell you what Brian's side of the story is. Maybe one, so just going back to these conversations that they had, I mean, Bertolino knows a lot.
But is it the truth? That's the part that I think, and Brian, I think that everyone is thinking, right, is that what credibility does Brian Laundrie have at this point? If Brian Laundrie comes home and tells his parents a story and tells his lawyer a story, I mean, how do we know that that isn't just something that he told them, an altered version of reality, an altered version of the truth?
Yeah. That
they, right? So Brian Laundrie's credibility has been called into question here, and of course it has been called into question here. But I was mentioned earlier, I ran a poll on my Instagram, on my JB Instagram, and 95% of people don't believe the story that is left behind in these 8 pages. And it's easy to understand why there's so many skeptics out there. It really is.
Well, and was there a meeting when Brian Laundrie came back without Gabby, when they got Mr. Bertolino involved? Were there meetings and phone conversations where this entire thing was a concocted plan? This is how we're going to explain it. This is how we're going to write the letter. This is how this is going to play out. I don't know the answer to that question, but what was going on behind the scenes? I mean, it was almost interesting. And this is something Mr. Riley brought up to me. He kept, why did Mr. Bertolino release the letter yesterday so immediately? Right. He said, in the interest of transparency, was, look, I'm not going to complain as a reporter. I want to get as much as I can. I'm not going to, send me everything, Mr. Bertolino. And I'll be respectful and do it in a fair way. So I'm not saying I'm happy he did release it, but from a perspective of looking at why, from almost a public relations, I mean, it was almost like, was it planned that when they got it, they were going to release it right away and hope that this sort of narrative took over? I don't know. It's all very interesting.
I thought of the same thing, and I tried. I tried to put on my lawyer hat a little bit and put myself in Bertolino's frame of mind, or Chris and Roberta's frame of mind. Did they think that this was going to exonerate Brian or alleviate some of the pressure on their family by giving them Brian's take of it? Because, again, as we illustrated on the YouTube stream before we jumped on live here on Facebook Live, we talked about all the opportunities that Brian, despite what happened, whether it was an accidental death of Gabby or an intentional death. Listen. Brian intentionally killed Gabby. He indicated that. But whether or not it was the aftermath of an accident or whether or not the entire thing was an intentional act of evil, regardless of how you feel about it, the aftermath and the events that occurred afterwards, Brian had so many opportunities to do the right thing, and he didn't. And he kept doing the wrong thing over and over and over and over and over again until his final moments. And so there's just, I can't wrap my brain around trying to figure out exactly how this fits in to the strategy that Bertolino and the Laundries have as far as going forward. Perhaps it was in the... And
I think there is a strategy. I do. I mean,
me too. Is the strategy...
Bertolino, he's a smart guy. I think there's a strategy. This all fits in somehow. Or maybe they just knew that people would forever talk about this notebook and there'd be, conspiracy theories, and maybe they just thought, let's just get it over with and put it out there
and rip the Band-Aid off, so to speak. Or perhaps was this intended for one person? Was it intended for Judge Carroll to look at this and say, okay, the notebook's out there, the public interest in this is going to die down, and perhaps there isn't as much? Because we had on Peter Tragos, who's a great attorney here in the Tampa Bay area. We had him on for a stream earlier this week, and he indicated that, listen, that the public fascination with this case, there is no doubt, is going to have some form of an impact on on the pretrial hearing and as well as the should this proceed to trial. So there is that public arena component to it. Was this put out there to perhaps influence Judge Carroll's decision, or is Judge
But
Carroll?
I almost think, in my mind, it almost influences him in the opposite way.
That's what
because
people
I
have
mean,
been saying too.
hopefully it doesn't influence him because they're not supposed to be influenced, and it's supposed to just be what's in the lawsuit, and But if he is watching all of these developments, it's now back, at the forefront of the news. People are interested again. There's new questions. I would think that it would be helping the Petitos in a way from that perspective, from the legal civil perspective.
There's a lot of people that agree with you, and a lot of people saying that now the notebook is out, it almost re-inflamed people and got them more, once again, reinvigorated regarding this story, because they want to know, again, why Brian chose the actions that he did in the aftermath of Gabby's death, and why there wasn't more of a ethical decision process that was laid out by his parents, by Chris and Roberta Laundrie. Also, as well, I can't not bring this up. I can't avoid it anymore. The amount of comments that I get from people, Brian, and how my inbox has been blowing up from people saying that they're not so sure that these are Brian's last words, that this is not, people want a handwriting analysis of this. The FBI has indicated that this is in fact the final 8 pages. Of course, they have indicated as much, and we have this now in as we understand it, this final word, this final message to the world from Brian. But there are still people who want there to be a handwriting analysis of Brian Laundrie's notebook. What do you make of all those comments that are coming in as well?
Yeah, I mean, the FBI seems confident that this was his, confession and suicide letter. Anything's possible. I actually was thinking, I'm filling in again next week for Banfield. I was thinking, would it be interesting to have a handwriting expert on one night? So that sort of crossed my mind too. And all the parts that he crossed out, and it would be interesting to sort of dissect that angle of it. But I think there'll always be, look, we're not going to get all the answers because he's dead. So I think there'll always be these sort of questions that we wonder about, and that is, I get it.
Not to mention the endless conspiracies that people out there still believe that Brian is alive, which, to use a Bertolino word, if everyone will allow me to do so, I will say is hogwash. As far as all the conspiracy theories that exist out there, Brian, I believe that you would second that, correct?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. All right, let's get to. We're going to pivot now for a quick second here, everybody. Let me explain where this stream is going to go. The news portion of this stream is going to continue in a second. Okay, we're going to be ending our stream here on Facebook Live. To our Facebook Live audience, what I would invite you to do is come join us over on YouTube, where we're more equipped for longer streams. We can, of course, stay with you live on Facebook, but with the news of the day, it's just more important for us to stay with you live on YouTube, and we're going to be ending our Facebook Live stream. Please go check my WFLA JB Twitter if you would like to continue watching this live stream, and join us on YouTube. To our YouTube audience, don't go anywhere. To our WFLA.com, WFLA app audience, please don't go anywhere. And for those of you on Facebook Live, please click on the link in the description on this video for the very latest on Brian Laundrie, the notebook confession, the full transcript if you want to read the words and you can't make out, of course, the words as it is in Brian Laundrie's handwriting. You want to read the words for yourself. Click on the link in the description on this video. This is going to end the Facebook stream, but stick around for just another few seconds. Brian, Entin, don't go anywhere. I have one more thing for you. We're going to quickly come back here to YouTube in just a moment here on WFLA Now. Back here with you live, everybody, on WFLA Now. You're looking now in the center of your screen at a beautiful shot of Tampa. Brian, when was the last time you were in Tampa?
Whew, that's a good question. Maybe the Tom Brady stories.
Oh, okay.
That might have been it.
Yeah.
I think that was it. Yeah.
So we are now streaming only on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, and YouTube Live. We are going to continue the conversation. Brian does have to get going here in just a few moments. We are going to continue the conversation on Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito and get to more of your hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyBrian comments and questions in a moment. Brian does have to go, and I'm stealing him for another 5 minutes here. Brian knows from getting to know me.
And my family will literally kill me if you go any longer.
No. I'm doing this for you, and you're going to explain to your family that I'm doing this for you, and you'll see where I'm going with this. Brian knows. I talked to Brian a few months back, and he knows that I went to school as a psych major. I was going to be a psychologist, and there's been a lot of news over the last 48 hours. Roe v. Wade, this story, other news that has been breaking in this country. And there's a mental health fatigue component that comes into play. And what we're going to do, Brian has to get back to his family. I don't want Brian getting back to his family without us just having a little bit of a mental health break from this story for a second. And so what we're going to do is just have 5 minutes of talking about something that isn't Brian Laundrie, Gabby Petito, Roe versus Wade, or one of the other crazy stories that we cover here in this country. Brian, will you indulge me for 5 minutes for some more fun, lighthearted questions just to take our minds?
Sure, yeah,
all of us, myself included, and our YouTube audience included. We're going to go back to Petito. We're going to go back to Laundrie. That's not going anywhere. But while the two of us are on screen, let's just take a mental health 5 minutes to talk about something that isn't Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie, and some of the other crazy stories that we cover. July 4th is coming up. Brian, where are you going to be, and what's your opinion of July 4th?
I love it. I mean, I have to work actually.
Oh no!
On July 4th. I don't know if you're off. You know how it is in news. Like we get you get like one holiday off, but then you have to work a different holiday because the news never stops and there's always news on News Nation. So I'm working 4th of July, which is fine because I got some other holidays off. So I'll be working, but yeah, I love it. Hopefully I'll be in Miami. Hopefully I can do like something fun at some point during the day.
All right, we're going to do an emoji poll. This is just some fun, again, to get everyone's minds off of this, just take a break, a mental health break for all of us here, okay? And everybody go to your keyboards and find the food section of your emoji keyboards, will you? Indulge me for a second. Brian, you are attending a 4th of July barbecue, a grill out with your family. Everybody comment here in the comment section with a food emoji. What is the number one food that you will gravitate towards when you go to a barbecue or a grill out? What are you grabbing? What are you craving?
I mean, I'm like a snack guy, so probably like guacamole and chips and like salsa and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Like I like almost like the appetizers better than the main event.
So you're not like a cheeseburger, hot dog, or give me a steak kind of guy?
No, I'm not a big meat eater, honestly. I mean, I'm not like, I'll eat meat, but I'm not a huge, like, I'd almost like prefer like a veggie burger. Sometimes I'll do a turkey burger.
Okay, we've got Daisy saying pizza. Okay, at a barbecue. All right.
Pizza, yeah, pizza's great. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd snack on some pizza. Water. Ooh,
oh yeah, for sure.
A lot of watermelon emojis for a 4th of July grill out. And Potato Face is commenting, and Julie as well with the avocados. I'm a big guac fan. I'm sure you and I could.
Oh yeah,
do some serious damage on a bowl of chips and guac.
100%.
Let me ask you this question. I love this question. It's a great question to take your mind to another place, right? Your dream home one day. I want you to picture your dream house, okay? With you and your significant other. Give me one feature that you want your dream house to have, like something that is unique, like that you want your house to include. That if it was your dream home, money is not a factor in this question.
Gosh,
anything you want.
That's a good one. Probably like a really big bathtub, and like a really big like kind of man cave, like just like where I can just like have whatever I want, like, and no one will like bother me there.
Okay, what's in?
Because I live in kind of a small house now. I like to have like a bigger house.
Right. Yeah, Miami living. Right.
Yeah. Everything's so expensive down there now. What
does the Brian Entin man cave look like? What's? You have movie posters on the wall? Is it video
yeah,
games?
Like so,
what is
I'm like a plane geek. Like I'm like really into aviation. So like probably like a lot of airplane models. Like I'd love like really big models, like hanging from the ceiling, that kind of a thing.
Awesome.
That's probably like what my man cave would have. Yeah.
I would love a big pool. I love being outside.
Yeah, a big pool for sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you a weird one. Well, I moved. I was around in a lot of different houses growing up. And it's going to sound really weird, and our audience is going to probably be like, JB, really? That's what comes to your mind? But hear me out on this. I lived in a lot of different houses growing up, okay? And one of the homes that I lived in growing up had a laundry chute in it. It was in every bedroom had a connection to this laundry chute that went throughout the house. Yep. And all you did was take your dirty laundry, you threw it in the laundry chute, and it went down into the basement right next to the washer and dryer.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, that's amazing.
I hate laundry as an adult. I hate doing it. And actually, that's actually a really terrible choice of words. Now, I'm just realizing that that's not the right thing I should be saying on this live stream concerning laundry. But I really don't like doing laundry, especially folding laundry. It drives me crazy. So that's a weird quirk that I would like in my house. And the last question, I'll get you out on this. I know you got back to your family. You're an aviation nut. You're a travel nut. I mean, I follow you on Instagram. I see all your exploits. You're a world traveler. Give me one place that you really want to go to that you haven't been yet.
I want to go. I think I'm going to go soon to the Galapagos, which is like, the islands off of Ecuador. I want to go there. I think I'm going to go there in a couple months. I like crazy places. I'm not I can't lay on the beach and just go to Cancun. I like to go, I want to go to Antarctica. I want to go to the Amazon. I just like to go, taking me somewhere with no cell phone service, where it's just wild.
The Galapagos. That's always
and
been on my list.
And you like to dive, don't you? Don't you dive?
I'm a scuba diver. Any place.
So you would love the Galapagos.
Oh man, any place that I can see what is under the surface of the water, and that's a testament to my wife Devin, who grew up being a scuba diver and got me into it of course, when we got married. So yes, that's a one day, perhaps Brian Entin and I will find ourselves in an exotic place and we'll snap a selfie.
I keep telling you, come down to Miami. We'll have a tequila. We'll hang out,
I would love that.
Guys, I'll have to take the trip down.
I will not keep you separated from your family any longer. I just want to get you out on some good vibes, Brian Entin. Everybody,
Thanks,
round of
JB.
Applause for Brian Entin. He's one of a kind. Thanks so much. Take care of yourself.
Oh my gosh, sound effects and everything.
You know me. Yeah, I got all the tech, man. I'm always ready for you. Take care of yourself, Brian. And
thanks, JB.
I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Okay, have a good day. See you guys later.
You too. Brian Entin, everybody. Again, one of a kind. And hopefully that everybody has been able to take a little bit of a mental health break, given everything that has transpired with all of this, and really just with news. Mental health is so important to me, and finding balance and not constantly surrounding yourself with negative news, and making sure that we have an opportunity, even to take breaks every now and again for some positive energy, is so important. And we need to do that on live streams more, and perhaps we will have the opportunity to do it more, and you learn a little bit more about the people that are presenting you with the news too. So hopefully everybody was able to get a little bit of a break and think about your favorite 4th of July food. Think about a feature of your dream house. Let me ask you guys, before we get back to talking about laundry, which we did talk about. That was completely somehow I always find myself stepping in that kind of a puddle. That was not a foreseen sort of situation. But let's start with, Bonnie says #HeyJB, get a Top Gun Maverick poster. Oh man, I didn't ask Brian Entin if he saw Top Gun. And he's an aviation guy. Damn it. Bummer. Missed opportunity. What is a feature of your house that you would absolutely love? Something that, really quick. We're going to go back to laundry. We're going to go back to the notebook, to the letter. Please tell us something that, so Julia would like an elevator. Wait, come on, click. There it is. An elevator in your house. Ooh, I have a family member with an elevator in their house, but I don't have. I'm the least patient person on the planet. Patience is not my virtue. I don't possess it. It's not a good quality. And so waiting for elevators, I don't take the elevator here. I take the stairs here at WFLA because I just can't wait for the elevator. But for somebody that's, that needs to take the elevator, I'm sure that's awesome. Oh my God. Well, Perplexed says hashtag HJB, my dream house would include me. That's so kind. But that's also, yeah, no, that's, I'll just say that's kind. Let's go on to another comment. Okay, hold on. Whoa. Scrolling too fast. Porcupine, pancake art, hashtag HJB, a fireplace. So my house in Florida has a fireplace. I love staring at it, but not using it because it's so hot in Florida. Why would you have a fireplace? I never got it. I moved into a house in Florida and it's like a central feature of the house. It's like you walk in and like, boom, there's a beautiful fireplace. And I'm thinking, of all the things that you could have put into this house, it's 94 degrees out or something like that. What's our degree? It's like it's in the 90s. Ooh, Risa says, hashtag HJB, all natural light. Barbara says a maid. Hey, listen, we all need a little help every now and again. We all need help. Oh my God. Sun City, hashtag HJB, a lazy river. At your house. I did say money is not an object. That is a great one. Would it get old? Would your lazy river get old? But a lazy river is very, very cool. Oh my God. We're now getting really crazy. Evgenia, hashtag HJB, a rooftop pool. Man, Tampa Bay's got some rooftop pools. I gotta, what we need to do, you guys, what we need to do is start, making these streams really, take off. And then, I don't know, maybe one day I'll be able to get a house with a rooftop pool. I mean, that's such a unique and fun idea. The rooftop pools usually here in Tampa Bay are like on apartment complexes. And then you go up and it's of course, it's really cool. Julie says, hashtag KJB, what made you want to become a psychology major? I wanted to help people. I think we've all been exposed to mental health difficulties in our youth. That is not a problem that is exclusive to just one type of family or one section of the world. Mental health impacts all of us in different ways and at different levels of severity. So I wanted to help people, and I wanted to do my part. And what I realized, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, what I realized is that to be a really good psychologist and to be a really good therapist, to help people and psychoanalyze them, you need one quality above all else that is so unbelievably important, and you need patience. I don't have it. I'm not a patient person. Patience is not my strong suit. So I learned in college that I couldn't be a psychologist because I didn't possess the patience necessary. I'm somebody who likes to be I'm an aggressive, an assertive person. I like to pursue my endeavors, and I like to establish progress in the endeavors that I pursue. I do not do well with complacency. So that's the reason why I couldn't go into being I can present you the news and do so in a way where I can be aggressive and assertive, but I would not make a great therapist because I don't have the patience for it. And it's just a real self-evaluation. But yeah, this is what it's all about. Barbara says, hashtag HJB, thank you for discussing mental health. Life has been a little bit tough since the pandemic. Okay, so, man, beautiful Serendipity says a huge art studio. I'm just getting so many great ideas here for maybe if we'll take all these ideas and make one awesome dream house, right? A cozy spa. Wow, a spa in your house. Sounds pretty good. Okay, I think that we're about to go back to the subject matter at hand. How are we feeling about it? Is everybody feeling good about it? About, once again, talking about, let's get our title here restarted here on the bottom of your screen. I'm going to change this out, and let's go back to the subject matter at hand, if we will. Okay, back here with you live on WFLA Now, discussing what, of course, you're all here to talk about. And that is what we now have as these three key pieces of evidence should this proceed to a jury trial. Let's reset for a second and go back to, if we may, last night when I had Pat Riley on talking about the Byrne letter. Let's take a listen.
The most I want to say is that there was an offer to assist Brian with some things in that letter.
Can you explain more of what you're referencing here? Because this is new stuff.
Well, the letter has, Mr. Bertolino has the letter. I don't have a copy of the letter, but the letter appears to be written to Brian after Gabby was killed, and there's some pretty extreme things that she said in there that, without having the letter here to quote it, I don't want to say, but I will simply tell you that there's some pretty extreme things that were contained within that letter.
When was this letter authored by Roberta Laundrie, and where is the whereabouts of it now? What can you tell us about it from those questions?
The letter is undated, so it's uncertain when it was written, but certainly based upon what's contained within the letter, it would appear as though the letter were written after Gabby was killed and before Brian took his life. And the letter is currently in the possession of Mr. Bertolino.
Was that one of the items?
I will tell you, by the way, that on the envelope that contained the letter, the words "burn after you read this" were written.
So again, let's circle back to the latest developments. I have been told that let's just talk about for a moment the fact that this letter survived. Roberta Laundrie gives this letter to her son, Brian. It's intended for his eyes only because it says "burn" after reading on this. That's what we have been led to believe, even though Bertolino says that that's just the title of a movie on the envelope itself. But it survives. This letter exists, and it's been acknowledged by Bertolino and Riley. So this letter exists because we know that it was picked up yesterday at FBI Tampa. And so the letter exists, and Brian, if he did in fact receive it, and we believe that he did based on, of course, what Riley said, but that's again the claims of one side here, that there was this letter that Brian received from his mother, that he didn't adhere to the instructions on the cover, unless he thought it was a movie title, as Bertolino said, but he didn't burn it. It has survived to this point. Now, you might be wondering, oh my goodness, now it's back with the Laundrie family. Will it be destroyed? Stephen Bertolino gave his word, according to Riley himself yesterday, that the letter would not be destroyed, according to Riley. But even if that letter got lost, even if something happened and that letter was destroyed, the FBI has digital copies of that letter. So there's the chance that if this proceeds to a jury trial, that will emerge. There's also the notebook, and then also a potential second and third confession type note, one that we know to be digital, according to Pat Riley, that exists. And Riley claims that it's at least partially contradictory to and doesn't add up with the 8 pages that we have here. So we were presented with one massive piece of the puzzle yesterday, and now we have 2, maybe 3 more, multiple pieces of the puzzle that remain unknown. Because Brian Laundrie, I'm sure, when he wrote this, wanted the world to believe that this was the truth of what happened. The Petito and Schmidt side are saying, not so fast. There's more to this. This isn't the actual full version of events, or even the version of events that we should be believing at this point in time. All right, let's go back to some of the comments, and we'll, oh my goodness, that's a very wild conspiracy theory. But you know what? let's continue to kind of look here, guys. We're gonna as I say, we're gonna try to stay rooted in reality here. And so I know that there are some outlandish theories that exist, but we need to keep the train on the tracks. So we're going to try to keep our questions rooted in reality or as close to that as possible. Julia says, #HJB. All of Bertolino's claims cast doubt on everything individually, but put together, they make no sense. It's a movie title on the envelope, and she wrote it before the trip. What? That's the Bertolino response is eyebrow raising, and wasn't when I texted Bertolino last night when Riley called into WFLA Now Live to deliver that news to us, the existence of this letter that Roberta allegedly authored for her son. And I shot a text to Bertolino and I said, Steve sounds like the type of guy to me who is going to stick to his word. And his word was that he wasn't going to be commenting further. That was in the letter that he put out in his release from his office in East Islip yesterday. And so I was surprised when I looked at my phone and Bertolino had shot a text my way. I was even more surprised, I will say, by his response. That the burn after you read this, or burn after reading, or whatever is on the cover of this envelope that he is acknowledging does exist, contained a movie title on it. But let's not forget what Brian Entin said, based on his interview with Pat Riley, saying that Riley was at FBI Tampa. They have all of these items that FBI agents are returning to the families. And according to Riley, Bertolino had a look of shock on his face when this letter was given from the FBI to him and he had the opportunity to read it. So there's three qualities that we have heard about this letter. Riley told Entin that it was odd. Riley told me it was extreme. And Riley also says that Bertolino's response to it at FBI Tampa yesterday, in his words, were shocking. So we now have, no one saw this coming, really, other than perhaps the families themselves. But Brian Entin was very honest, and I repeat the same honesty that he presented. I was very surprised that there was this new, now, let's be real, the notebook has been the mysterious piece of evidence for all of these months. And I really thought that was going to be the, not the last thing to drop, but the big last thing to drop. And now we have this, the existence of this now new mystery item, or mystery items, which now take this story into a new chapter. We've gone from the notebook chapter to the Roberta letter chapter. JM, #KJB, what estate does Brian have? How much was he worth? Any idea? If I remember correctly, he had something in the neighborhood of like $20,000 to $25,000 in savings. Now, so a reminder, there's two lawsuits, and there's the wrongful death suit that's been filed against Brian Laundrie's estate. And if, they win, and the wrongful death suit could be in the millions of dollars, according to Peter Tragos. It would be, that the Petito and Schmidt family is entitled to $10 million because of wrongful death committed by Brian Laundrie, based on the evidence that he claimed responsibility for her death in the notebook, and that the Petito and Schmidt family should get this gargantuan amount of money in response to that. But that's largely, in part, a just sort of procedural, surface level kind of thing, because you can't collect on that. You can't collect on something that. Now, look, could they, come up with money that would go from one party to the other, depending on the assets that Brian had in his possession that were under his name at the time of death? I'm sure that that's something that could and might happen, but the Petito and Schmidt family isn't going to, become millionaires off this wrongful death lawsuit. They're not going to collect. and that's just because of the size of the estate. Had Brian Laundrie been, a multimillionaire, we're talking about different scenarios and different factors here, but he was a 23-year-old with a limited amount of money to his name. I think that some people would say that 20, 25,000, somewhere in that range is having that amount of money in your bank account for a 23-year-old. I think there's some difference of opinions as to whether or not that's a little or a lot. Regardless, they're not going to collect a ton of money. And look, it's been told to me that this is not about money. I have been told that this is about the Justice for Gabby movement, and I've been told this is about getting to the facts of what really happened between Brian and Gabby. Becky, #HJB, what is your thought on the last paragraph of the notebook being written with different ink? Perhaps written on a different day? Page 7. Page 8. Pause. Oh, let's put away Becky's comment. I see what she's saying here. There's a discrepancy in color of ink or the density of that ink. And let me read this. I'll just read this. I've killed myself by this creek in the hopes that animals may tear me apart, that it may make some of her family happy. Please pick up all of my things. Gabby hated people who litter. I don't know what to... I think that a handwriting analysis would need to be conducted to tell us exactly why so many things could have happened. He scratched out a lot on previous pages. So he might have ran out of ink. It doesn't look like he ran out of ink. Listen, there's also the question of water coming into play, but also, too, would water have changed the color of one section of the page and not the other? And look, it very well possibly could have been written at a different time. We don't know when Brian wrote this. We don't know if it was in the reserve, before he left for the reserve, while he was in his car, right before he turned the gun on himself. He might have written it in different portions. He might have written this before he left and then chose a different pen when he got... There's so many different scenarios, but that's interesting. I didn't really look at this and see that there was a difference in... And also, too, lighting is a big deal. And I'm not going to say that the lighting here is changing one, but that's also a factor with how different this might appear to be. You can also see some faint... I don't know if those are indentations or bleeding from the ink, but yeah, a lot of people have been calling on. Look, hey, is there a Reddit community for handwriting analysis? Come on, I know that Reddit, handwriting. Does that exist? Yeah, there's a Reddit for everything. There's a penmanship Reddit. There's a handwriting Reddit. We don't need, the best expert when we have potentially a team or an army of experts online that could maybe start to do some handwriting analysis. That's what we did over the course of this entire process, the entire investigation. There was a great community of people that came together, whether it was doctors or lawyers or bounty hunters, people that came together, and with all of their various fields of expertise, they were able to pool their resources and their collective knowledge together and experience together to form a consensus on a particular development in this case. It should occur and might very well with this 8 pages that we now have as part of the evidence here in the Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito story. Looking at some other comments. Hello to Kelsey, Aaron, Green Tiger Lily, Audrey Wilson, Haley, Loretta, Lyndon, Jean, and Heather. I understand that there are people that still believe that this isn't Brian's writing, but we have to take the FBI at listen. This is the the FBI's conclusion that the notebook provided us with the last written words of Brian Laundrie. And listen, the FBI isn't going to say that. This isn't your normal law enforcement. This is the FBI doing all of their homework and all of their forensic analysis on this piece of evidence and determining that this is the final words, the final notebook, and let's not forget that. Miss Dutch says, hashtag HJB, the last line looks like he tried to emphasize it by using a thicker marking. I'm a teacher, and girls do this a lot, boys a lot less, a lot less. Interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah, could it, and look at all, see, do you see all the bleeding that we have going on here? There's so many different factors at play. I like Miss Dutch commenting here about perhaps it was made in a form of emphasis. You have to understand that this is also being done while Laundrie is under severe mental and emotional stress. So it's not as if like you're calmly writing a note, after your wedding and saying thank you for attending and so on and so forth. Thank you for your gift. It's not like a calm setting where you're able to really focus on your penmanship. You're doing so with the understanding that you are soon thereafter going to take your own life. So your handwriting isn't going to be perfect. Your penmanship is not going to be perfect. And so there might be some inconsistencies with how you would normally use a pen to write a letter. Emily, I'll come back to that. Emily, your comment, I see it. Thank you for asking. We'll come back to that. I just want to try to get to as many comments and questions as possible about the subject matter at hand before we wrap up and start talking about other topics. Karen, thank you. Kelly Brook, hashtag HJB. Does anyone else find it odd that the first page is messy and off the lines, but the rest is straight and neat? Also, at times, he looks as if it was written by different people, in my opinion. I see consistency in the handwriting. I'm not an expert. I'm not a handwriting analyst, or analyst, excuse me. But I do see consistencies with the handwriting. Now, this is the last page again. This was where you see above Kelly's comment, you see that there is a difference in the density. Okay, so let's pause this for a second. And this is what Kelly's talking about. I would say I will share my thoughts. I usually like to keep things focused on your thoughts, but I will share my thoughts about this. Again, the mental and emotional stress that the person is under, coming to the realization that they are writing their final words, their final message. This might have been done during extreme mental fatigue and extreme mental pressure and stress. And so there might have been this first page that was written. And this is, again, I'm offering a potential reason as to why it might be this way. I am no expert. I am not an analyst of handwriting. But to try to answer the question from Kelly, might have written this out and really struggled with it, knowing that it's really the final message that you're writing with your own right hand. And then looking back down at it and realizing how much it is skewed, there's a chance could he have taken a break? Could he have tried to focus more on his penmanship on additional pages from that point forward? I wasn't surprised by it being as all over the place on this page. And somebody mentioned to me, can somebody clarify for me that Did Brian Entin, I didn't get a chance to ask Brian when he was live with us, but did he make notes about Laundrie's grammar last night on News Nation? Somebody help me out here, because I watched just about all of it, I thought, but I missed the part about the grammar, I thought. So people were like making a lot of comments on Twitter last night about Brian Laundrie's grammar as highlighted by Brian Entin. But regardless, the point I bring this up for a very specific reason is because I'm not surprised at all that that this is as all over the place, as scrambled, and as not on the lines as it is. This is a good comment. Olivia Grambo? Or is it Olivia Grambo? Hey, I like the cat in the profile picture. Hashtag HJB. Does the note seem to have some lighter smeared spots indicating that he was crying when he wrote this? Tears would make some marks, without question. Yeah. And look, I think what you want of Brian Laundrie, and you believe me, whether I say that or not, you're going to have your own opinions of Brian Laundrie. And regardless of that, there's a likelihood that, again, he was so just not fully there with where he was, given that he knew he was about to take his own life, that he might have been crying. Absolutely possible. And it's a good comment to bring up and remind people that that's also a reason why you might see some odd spots in certain spots, especially at the bottom there. See the bottom there? It looks like it's like smeared together. That there's a lot of different reasons why that could be that way. And again, not an expert when it comes to handwriting. Ooh. Lewis, hashtag AJB. He never said where the body was located in these notes. Talked about the creek as if people knew already. Yeah, I mean, why not leave a note? If you knew that you were going to go claim your own life, why not leave a note that, you know, indicated where, do something to give some peace to Gabby's body. Look, I'm going to be real. I have seen so many comments pointed my way about allegations of this letter, this notebook, this confession being written with narcissistic tendencies. The amount of comments that I have seen, people that read this and that is how they feel about it, that it is extremely self-centered. I've seen some people comment that it has been self-deprecating. So that is just some of the public's response to this based on what I have seen with some of the comments and some of the messages that I have received in the aftermath of this notebook being released. Yeah, ICU says, and I noted this as well, hashtag AJB, that first page was simply distorted by water. Absolutely possible too. Let's not forget, of course, that the Carlton Reserve was flooded. So that's also a component of this as well. We are going to stay live till 4 o'clock Eastern time, roughly. Maybe a couple extra minutes, but 4 o'clock. So another 15 minutes for as many hashtag KJB questions as possible. I'll look for hashtag Hey Brian too, even though Brian hopefully is enjoying a nice beverage and a good meal with his family right now. Marley with a really good question. Is there anything else in the notebook? There's clearly more than 8 pages on this notebook. You can see, of course, the binder at the top. So there's more pages. Did it contain writing from Brian or Gabby or somebody else? Where did this notebook come from? Did Brian take this from his house? Was this notebook in particular on the trip with them? Does it have any sentimental meaning or value or connection to Gabby? Questions that remain unanswered, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of. Maui girl, hashtag AJB. Although we will never know what really happened that day, I do believe their text messages, the cell data, will reveal a different story than what was written here, in my opinion. Yeah, so this digital evidence, this digital confession note that we now know exists, at least according to Pat Riley, the attorney for the parents of Gabby Petito, that could be a text message. That could be a final text that Brian sent. It could be a final note written in his phone. So there's a digital evidence component of this now too that we need to remember, and that's going to be certainly a focal point if this proceeds to a jury trial. Well, yeah, we were talking about this with Walt Buteau yesterday. Goliath girl, 81, hashtag AJB. Why is the letter written like at first he's speaking to Gabby and then something? Yeah, it starts out as a letter to Gabby, and then it morphs into more of a testimony of his view and perspective on what transpired, his words. But you're right, it does start as something to Gabby and then becomes something else. Wow, I will animate this comment. Gina, I guess I really didn't think about that, Gina. Hashtag AJB, isn't it convenient that this was all released at a time when everyone is distracted by Roe v. Wade? I was so focused on reporting the news yesterday that I didn't try to read really between the lines to this level, if you will. What Gina is trying to say here is that, is there any chance that this was released as a tactic while, of course, the news cycle was so heavily focused on the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision, Roe v. Wade overturned by the Supreme Court yesterday, and that being released? Is it a tactic that was conducted by Bertolino to release it when it could kind of fly under the radar? Let me give everybody something, a little behind the scenes tidbit of how the news operation or the news industry and the PR and marketing industry works. Friday is considered the news dump day. If you are obligated or you are going to release news that is relatively unpopular or news that you do not want to persist in the 24-hour news cycle here in the United States, it is the most well-known tactic, the easiest go-to, the PR 101 move to reveal that news on Friday at like 4:50, right before the end of business on a Friday. It's been that way for years, decades, that is what you do. Why do you do it that way? Because the weekend arrives and everyone's focused on, research will show you that people are less focused on the news and current events and the problems and issues that exist in the world on a Saturday and Sunday when they are trying to decompress from all of what goes on in the world. They're trying to unwind and disconnect on a Saturday and Sunday. And then Monday begins sort of a new news cycle. So it's a known PR sort of strategy to release news that is unpopular on a Friday late in the day. With news that you want to persist in a news cycle, you want it to occur on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so that it can persist, so it can stick, that there's a stickiness element to it, so that reporters, when they come in the next day and they have their editorial meetings and they pitch their ideas and they're talking, the Monday through Friday news cycle, while of course, the United States were so heavily focused on Monday to Friday, there's that element for follow-ups and more coverage over several days rather than a story kind of losing steam at the end of the week. Hopefully that makes sense. So Roe v. Wade, people have wondered aloud, if the Supreme Court released this decision deliberately on a Friday for this very reason, even though, quite frankly, I happen to think that the Supreme Court is going to release that decision when they release that decision, and no matter what, that Roe v. Wade is too massive, monumental, and has way too many historic implications for that to just, lose steam over a weekend. But however, was it a strategy, a PR strategy, to release it during Roe v. Wade being the dominant story in the news cycle here in the U.S.? I would just say that Stephen Bertolino was under really no obligation to release it at all. He didn't have to. There was no pressure that he was under. I mean, look, I was going to text him a bunch. I'm sure Entin was too, and other reporters that have covered this story. I would have persistently texted him and said, can we have the notebook? Can we have the notebook? Can we have the notebook? And he just could have, he could have texted me like, JB, stop bothering me, please. We're not releasing it at this time. And I would have been like, okay, understand. But he was under no obligation to release it at all. So it was released. It was likely, and very likely, released with the blessing of Roberta and Chris Laundrie, Brian's parents. And so I would say, Gina, that overall it's relatively somewhat unlikely that it was released at the same time as Roe v. Wade. But is it possible that was part of the thinking process? I'm sure it's possible. Yeah. Getting back caught up in the current comments here. Right. So Cammie says, #AJB. I understand where Gina is coming from, but none of this needed to be released. I think Bertolino thought it might change the narrative that Brian's a monster because it was framed as mercy. Right. That it was, in his words, a merciful act. David Queenan, #AJB. Is there chatter about the Laundries not cooperating with Northport PD because they were negotiating with the FBI for immunity? We don't know anything like that. Whether the FBI would, I don't know if the FBI as I understand it, the FBI and Northport Police, just from a law enforcement perspective, it wasn't advanced as far as the level of communication back and forth between both sides. It wasn't as if there was enough correspondence between both sides, between the Laundries and law enforcement, to get to the point where they're negotiating for anything to the effect of, hey, if we give you this, will you grant us that? It never got to that stage from my recollection and the reporting that I had on this story. I think that just the Laundries allegedly not cooperating with Northport PD, as put forth by Josh Taylor, their spokesperson. I think that that's just a result of, a lack of cooperation. That when you have the entire world, think about it. You're living a relatively straightforward life in Northport, Florida, and then all of a sudden you have your local police department and then the FBI descending on your house, and the entire world, including a mob on your front lawn. Okay, if the level of cooperation wasn't up to the Northport Police Department's liking, perhaps it was just because they were at that stage, they were just in really an unprecedented sort of situation. However, at the same time, you could also make the argument, and I'm sure people will, and say, JB, what are you talking about? You need to be cooperating with law enforcement. You have a girl who is missing and likely dead. Why isn't there the highest and most the most cooperative form of cooperation, if you will, that should have been? You need to work with law enforcement, not work against law enforcement. So I'm trying to provide some rationale as to why that might have occurred, but at the same time, I think everybody thinks, look, you need to be cooperating with your local police department. They're trying to get to the bottom of what happened and trying to keep people safe, and also help find a missing girl. This is a good question, Ashley, and it's a grim one because we're talking about Gabby's remains, but #AJB, so did Brian stay the night with her dead body or leave right after it happened? How long Brian stayed, how long Brian was there, it isn't really known. Timeline of events. Did he stay for hours? Did he leave immediately afterwards? We only have the notebook at this time and some loose dates based on the last week of August, so it's hard to say. Haley A. I'm just going to read this for what it is without really any of my analysis on it. Haley A. Hashtag AJB. It's like his text to Nicole. Mention Yosemite, and then the notebook says Utah. He was either falling apart or very conniving. Again, I only do, the comments have to, for it to animate in front of me, it has to have the hashtag symbol and then, hey, JB, no spaces or anything, followed by your comment. So there are people that are like, hey, why aren't you taking my comment? And it's because you either aren't using the hashtag or there's the space or something like that. So I'm giving everybody the basic instructions here. Hashtag, hey, JB, like Haley has it here on your screen. This is a perfect example, and I'll try, and then it'll pop up on my device. Or on my screen here. Tyler, hashtag HJB. Whoa. Nope. There it is. When was the first call made by Brian Laundrie from that area? On his way home, he had to have called home so that they could change the camping reservation. Well, look, the camping reservation, I'm sure, is very much secondary at that stage when Brian makes his first phone call home. And we don't know when that call was made. Perhaps if the FBI is called to testify in the civil lawsuit, they'll be able to provide some digital evidence and some time-stamped evidence that could point us to really what happened. That phone is everything, right? And really the digital evidence that has been gathered by the FBI is really going to be the monumental data dump in this case, if you will. So we don't know when the first call was made. And also, too, the camping reservation could have been changed really at there's nothing to indicate that was a priority for them upon Brian's initial return home. Interesting. Epiphany Creative, hashtag KJB. Could Laundrie's attorney be considered a conflict of interest in the Petito case? You know, I think Entin was spot on when he said that that by many accounts, legal experts have said that they very much agree and would do the same had they been in Stephen Bertolino's shoes. That Stephen Bertolino even though in a court of public opinion or a court of moralities, Bertolino and the Laundries don't score high marks. From a legal perspective, legal experts have said that he has provided the clients, Chris and Berta Laundrie, with very sound legal advice. I don't think that he could be considered a conflict of interest in the case. He's not involved in it other than in an advisement capacity. So he's an advisor to them, because the civil lawsuit in the first pretrial hearing that we had on Wednesday, that is, of course, being headed up on the Laundrie side by Matthew Luca, who was licensed to practice law in Florida. Bertolino, who was on it, I believe, virtually, just listening. He, of course, is just participating in an advisory capacity, being their longtime attorney in New York. But again, he's not licensed to practice law in Florida. But the big thing the big thing to remember too, which I thought was so fascinating, is that Riley and Nicole Schmidt and Joe Petito had full intention is naming him as a defendant in the lawsuit. The lawsuit right now is filed against Chris and Roberta Laundrie. They wanted to add, and they would have added, Stephen Bertolino as a defendant in the lawsuit had it not been for the fact that he's not a Florida resident. He's a New York resident. It's very interesting. Risa Juban? Risa? Hashtag HJB, do we know why the Laundries are not sitting in on the trial in person or via Zoom? Are they hiding so much so that they have to appear through an attorney everywhere? They need to show face. Look, every legal expert that I've talked to, every attorney that I've talked to said, look, I would never advise my clients to be there unless they were absolutely obligated to when they're defendants in such a high-profile lawsuit. The Laundries were not obligated to be there, and it would have added to the legitimacy of the case had they decided to be there. The optics would have changed tremendously. So it was by no surprise whatsoever that they weren't there. And we don't know that they weren't listening. They could be watching this live stream right now. We were live with the court feed. We've been live with coverage. Chris and Roberta Laundrie could be in this YouTube live comment section right now watching this, for all we know. They could have been watching WFLA Now's pretrial sort of, live stream. Could they have been on the Zoom? Could they have been with Bertolino or on the phone with Bertolino? Or maybe they were just getting updates as it was happening, or maybe they watched it afterwards. There's a lot of different ways the Laundries could have been connected to that pretrial hearing, whether it was live or post-live. But them not being there is no surprise whatsoever. It would have been massively, monumentally shocking had they decided to go, because that would have been the first time that the two families would have been in the same room in a pre-trial hearing. Make no mistake about it. When these two families, if these two families are ever in the same room at the same time, that first time that happens, I mean, my heart rate is starting to go up. And I say that because I can only imagine the tension that would exist in that room. That wasn't going to happen in a pre-trial motion to dismiss hearing where attendance was not mandatory. That's going to only happen if they are mandated to be there. So, my goodness. I will tell you this. Should that ever happen, should it ever be in a court of law where we have the Petito and Schmidt family and the Laundrie family in the same room at the same time, I'm not going to say a word. If we have that live stream and it's live on our screen, I'm going to be like all of you and just watching it, not providing any commentary. I will say, introduce it. This is the first time that these two families are coming face to face. And then I will just watch, just like all of you, because it is going to be, Nicole Schmidt, Gabby's mom, is somebody who, and in her conversations with me in the past, she has indicated that, one of the things that she is not good at is hiding her emotions. She wears her emotions on her sleeve. And she was extraordinarily expressive, was she not, in the pretrial hearing when she was emotionally taken. She was clenching Gabby's ashes in the necklace around her neck. When she didn't approve, she had like that look on her face of disapproval, like a what kind of look on her face. She's very expressive. So should the two families ever be in one courtroom at one moment in time, I am just going to be an observer, at least until things, progress. You guys can chat away. Audrey says, hashtag AJB, I'll provide all the commentary. Have at it. Can you imagine the comment section when should that moment occur? All you guys, you don't need to hear from me. Oh, wow, we're already past 4 o'clock. We'll take one or two more before we're going to start to wrap up. LB, hashtag HAB, in the letter Brian says, take it easy on his parents because they're mourning and that they love Gabby too. That statement tells me that the parents, in fact, knew that Gabby was deceased. That's an interesting take. But I just I see that the obvious bridge to connect those dots. I do. But whether or not that is definitive and would hold up in a court of law, I'm just not so sure. Interesting take on the fact that, you know, what did he say that they were? Was that the word that he used? Was it mourning? Let's go back. Let's look at it. Reading, scrolling. Take that out for a second. So they never used the word mourning. He says, please do not make life harder for my family. They lost a son and daughter. And he says, I'm sorry to my family. This is a shock to them as well, a terrible grief. So, no, I don't know if that logic, Al, would hold up in a court of law. Oh, Michelle, or Shauna Michelle. Hey, FOI, Roberta's letter, like FOIA that letter. You better believe. Yeah, of course I FOIA'd for everything. I am. That's what we do. We FOIA. We're reporters. We submit FOIA requests, and so. But who is going to be the one to release it first? The FBI or Bertolino? I think most people would probably. Well, look, let's check my phone. I texted Steve Bertolino and I said, considering that you have released Brian's notebook, would you be able to provide me with the Roberta letter? I know that in your letter yesterday, you mentioned transparency. We would like a copy of that letter if you are willing to provide it. I asked as nicely as I could for the letter. Now that we have, look, he released the notebook. Steve, you can release the letter. Right? It's about transparency. You want to be the transparency lawyer. You release this. Release the letter. If it doesn't have a date on it, and if the title of it is a movie reference, then release it. Let's see it. We're all about finding fact here. We're all about finding what happened. You've acknowledged the existence of this, Steve. Let's see the Roberta letter. We will end out on we're going to wrap up our live stream here. There was somebody that was asking how I'm holding up. I'm doing fine. Thank you. There have been people that have been asking about, we were talking about mental health earlier, and people that were asking, how am I doing? I am doing fine. I'm doing just fine. I have a great life at home. I'm very lucky to be married to a remarkable, incredible woman who is a former news reporter herself and who understands the ins and outs and what comes with being a journalist and what comes with being somebody who focuses on such tremendous tragedies over and over again. But you build up strength over time as a reporter, and you're able to. I'll be honest. I was talking with a friend last night, and I was telling her that that I'm very much equipped to handle my job on a day to day. The days that are the hard, I'll be very open with people that are asking about my mental health, and there have been some very kind comments about people asking how I'm doing. The days that are hardest for me are it's not the singular days. It's hardest for me when
when you have the back to back to back to back to back sort of days, when we're live streaming a lot, and there's we don't take commercial breaks here on WFLA Now. By now you've noticed. We can stream for hours. You know, look, I work at a NBC station in Tampa, Florida, and so the TV news industry is very much done in consistent scheduled spurts. So you have your newscast. It's like an A block, a B block, a C block, but then there's breaks. There's commercial breaks. There's breaks sometimes between newscasts. So while it is all happening a lot, there's usually break. With streaming, we do it in spurts as well, unscheduled, but it's sometimes we'll be doing it for hours and then multiple times a day for hours and hours at a time, and then for days and days in a row. That's when it gets tough. Just being honest. That's when it gets really difficult, is when man, I will tell you just very honestly, when we were doing the streams, and people remember this last year, when we were doing the streams with Eagle 8 HD flying almost every day over the Carlton Reserve looking for any sightings of Brian Laundrie, and we were flying every day. That was difficult. Being honest, that was difficult because it was just relentless. And at the same time, I feel like I have a responsibility to do right by you guys and to work as hard as I can for you guys and be here live with you guys. So I was weighing, all the fatigue that I was experiencing at the time with my duty to you and my commitment to you to always be there for you. So that was tough. Mentally, right now, I'm doing great, and I thank you for asking. I really appreciate it, and I really encourage everybody here to take care of themselves. Let's get this back up on your screen. Get this back up on your screen. We'll do just another 5 minutes here talking about things that are not Petito and Laundrie related, and just talk about you guys. How's everybody doing? How is everybody? Happy Saturday. Happy Catterday. Wherever you're watching from, let us know where you're watching from and give and say hello. We're just going to end out a stream here by just acknowledging some of the great folks. David, I'm not going to animate that comment on screen. That's a very, very kind thing that you put up there. That organization, I'm going to leave it unnamed. That organization is what we do here on live streaming is just so different than what they're used to seeing. It's not really something that they ever considered. So that's for David's comment. Let's see. Yeah, hi Heather from Minnesota. Hi Catherine from London, UK. Mother Bear from South Wales. Bayshore, Long Island. Hello. My old stomping grounds. Not in Bayshore, but I used to live on Long Island. Used to drive on the Meadowbrook, on the Seaford Oyster Bay Expressway, on the Wantagh, Hempstead Turnpike, Merrick Ave, Belmore Ave. You guys believe that I used to deliver pizza? I had a lot of jobs growing up. I was one of those, again, back to me not being a patient person. I wanted to work as early as young as I could. I was like so much looking forward to being a person who contributes to society and works and earns a paycheck and so on and so forth. I don't even know if it was legal, but I started working in like 14 years old, odd jobs around the town that I grew up in. My first job was stacking greeting cards in like a greeting card store. Like when you go pick up a card for Happy Mother's Day or Happy Graduation, I was the guy who would stock the greeting cards. That was my job, my very first job. And then I started delivering pizzas. So I always think back to Long Island, New York, and very, very fond of my memories growing up on Long Island. Deborah, hello from Morgan. Hello from Texas, says Natalie. Let's just throw up some of these on screen. Hello from California, says Renee. Rose Gold from Uruguay. Wow. Mississippi from, oh my goodness, they're moving in so fast now. Hello from Mississippi. Iona, hello from Germany. Cheech Brown, hello, or just thanks for all you do. I didn't even see a location there. Man, from Scotland. Wow, we have a lot of folks. joining us here on WFLA Now. New Brunswick. No, see, they're so fast. Okay, there it is. Embracing the new me. Thank you for your great reporting from New Brunswick, Canada. I'm going to be so embarrassed to admit that if you asked me to point out where New Brunswick, Canada was on a map, I can't tell you. So let's fix that right now. New Brunswick. Oh, it's next to Maine. You weren't that far away from where I grew up. I mean, look, you have, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, multiple states between you and I there. Embracing the new me, but now I know where New Brunswick, Canada is. My understanding the lay of the land in Canada is not my strong suit. Lynn Starling, I used to live in upstate New York. Tell me where you used to live. I've been all over New York. Please let me know where. Mr. X, watching from the UK. Karma Camille from South Lake Tahoe. Man, a lot of Canadians now popping in. Barb from Canada. We've got porcupine pancake art. What? Porcupine pancake art. Hashtag AJB from Ontario, Canada. Hence the fireplace comment mentioned earlier. I missed that, porcupine. I missed that. And, but yes, I was talking about how irrelevant fireplaces are in Florida. Julie says Westbury. Yeah, I used to work in Westbury. Talking about New York now? I used to work in Westbury. Used to, after school, go to the Source Mall in Westbury, New York. Way back when. Cape Town, South Africa. Watching at the Jersey Shore, says Dame Manda giggles. Sarah says, hashtag hey JB, my cats say thank you for honoring Catter Day. Yeah. Yeah, my love my cats. I could do a whole live stream talking about my cats. They're a bunch of little, well, one of them's a jerk. One of them is such a jerk. And the other is just so sweet, but just so scared of everything. Oh, hi, Amanda. I know Amanda Guido's joining us. Long Island is your favorite. Admit it. I enjoy Long Island, Amanda. Good to have AJ joining us. Thomas Hall, watching from Georgia. LV, where in upstate New York did you live? I lived in the awesome little town, little city of Corning, New York. Why is Corning, New York relevant? Because Corning Inc. is in Corning, New York. Why is Corning Inc. a big deal? Because they make the glass on just about every mobile device on the planet, it feels like. Glass on the iPhone, Gorilla Glass, the glass that is supposed to prevent your phone from breaking, your screen from breaking when you drop your phone, the advancements in glass technology. Yeah, a lot of that has been spearheaded by Corning Inc. And the city is just fantastic. It's a great community, and I miss it dearly. I would have stayed longer, but the news industry, you move a lot. You move from place to place. So my days in Corning were short, but my goodness, I loved it. Deborah, thank you. Oh, hi, Vasily, NY, joining us from Rome, New York. Or says Rome, New York. Hey, yeah, Maria, there's something we can talk about. How about our Tampa Bay Lightning winning last night? Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Colorado fans, Av fans. We're going for the three-peat. Big win last night for the Bolts. So, Maria, I'm with you. Go Tampa. Go Bolts. Contents of the notebook on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. I have plans tonight with my wife and friends, so I've got till about 4:30 before we got to wrap up our stream. And this is, again, just a mental health break. Take steps to take care of yourself this weekend. It's been, my goodness. Yesterday's news was exhausting with Roe v. Wade. And it was exhausting in a lot of different respects, because it was exhausting from a news perspective. It was also exhausting from, I know that there are a lot of women across the country that were extraordinarily, listen, regardless of whether you're a woman or men or regardless, there are people who were very emotionally taken with the news yesterday. There were some that were very that it was emotionally draining because it was the end of a very long road and they found it to be a moment of pure victory and joy. Others were emotionally taken with it because they see it as such a massive defeat and setting women's rights back for so long. I won't get into Roe v. Wade. I just know that it was taxing for so many people, and that's why we're saying take steps to take care of yourself, especially with the Petito news kind of being reintroduced to all of us yesterday, the Petito story. Dina Elizabeth, thank you from Phoenix for all that you do. I was in Phoenix once. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Phoenix and Scottsdale, it's a cool area. I like that dry heat. I like it. I like heat, so I hate snow. God, do I despise snow. No, actually, let me specify. I love snow. I hate shoveling it. Okay. Olivia. Oh, it was Olivia, because there's the W. So it's Olivia Grambo. Hashtag AJB. You're allowed to bring my cat to work for a live stream. So, oh my goodness, my cat in a newsroom. Well, one of my cats. Let me explain. I have one cat. It's a mother and daughter, and the mother is a jerk. If I brought her here, she would attack everybody. She's very protective and territorial, and I'm not kidding. You know, it's not a joke. She would start like she's a tiger. She thinks she's the biggest creature in the room, and she is ready to claw at you and bite you and attack you because you exist. That's the mother cat that I have. And then I have the daughter, who's the biggest scaredy cat I've ever known. I've had a lot of cats, but she's the biggest scaredy cat. And she would curl up into a little ball in the corner, and you'd probably see a cat cry because she would be so overwhelmed and so overstimulated by everything going on. So no, I'm not allowed to bring the cat to work. I think that there's allergy concerns, and each one of them would not hold up very well for very different reasons. One would be violent. The other would be quite literally scared to death. Audrey Wilson says, hashtag KJB. We know it's Ziggy, but yes, Ziggy Izzy. It's the younger one is Ziggy. The older one we call Mama. She's too violent to be given a real cute, cuddly name. We can't call her like Fluffy because she's just so violent. Not towards us, but when people come over, they know to stay away from her because she's violent and she gets protective of my wife and I. So she loves me and my wife. She's cute and cuddly and a great cat to us. But anybody else, she's ready to claw at you. And so because of that, we couldn't give her really a name because she's just too aggressive. So her name is Mama. And then there's Ziggy. Lauren from Birmingham, Alabama. Hello. Hashtag AJB, Birmingham, Alabama. I used to live in Mobile. I've been to Birmingham a bunch. Got Jack Royer over here. He's in our newsroom. He's from Birmingham. He grew up in Birmingham. We could talk to you all day about Birmingham. I got 5 minutes before I got to get going, folks. shout out to Lily and Cheeto. I bet you Cheeto's orange, like butterscotch orange. Tonya says, what are your cats' names? I just said Mom and Ziggy, but Lily and Cheeto. Shout out. Lillian also says, show us cats on Instagram. I'll try to take some pictures of my cats on my Instagram account later. Try to do that. Mama will not look as ferocious as she is. She's actually quite photogenic. But Ziggy will look terrified because she always looks scared. Always. Wow, Mexico. Love it. Claudia Torres, hello to Mexico. I have always been, while I struggle enough with the English language, clearly, Spanish, Espanol, never my strong suit, but I love Mexican culture. I love Mexican food, like real Mexican food, not like Tex-Mex. I love like authentic Mexican food. I love it. So big shout out to Mexico. Nicole says, hashtag HGB, happy Catter Day from Boston. Love your streams. Thanks. Appreciate it. This is, again, a mental health break for everybody just coming over and talking about Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. It's just an opportunity to take a little bit of a break and talk about something positive. I got a lot of, look, in the aftermath of our Gabby Petito coverage, people messaged me and said, why don't you ever talk about, why is everything always talk about tragic and depressing and terrible? I said, you know what? It's a really good point. And as somebody who's advocated for mental health, and there being conversations, the least that I can do is try to take a break in our coverage and talk a little bit about something that isn't just terrible news. Listen, they were crazy enough here at WFLA, crazy enough, these bosses of mine, to give me my own platform here with my own little thing in the bottom right that says, hey, JB. And yes, it's me. It's my thing. So I get to call the shots, okay? And if I want to take a mental health break to talk to you guys about my cats, that's what we're going to do. And I very deeply believe in mental health breaks. So we're going to try to do this more. And maybe at the end of streams, just to unwind a little bit. Right? You guys sick of all the news that happens in the world, and us newscasters, we only ever talk about things that are terrible and depressing and death and destruction. It's just, let's talk about something that we can still deliver the news and then still talk to you guys about stuff that really matters in this world, the stuff that makes our lives worth living, the fun things. Brian Entin's obsession with aviation, my love of scuba diving, Oh my goodness. Scooter says, there's another example. Hashtag HJB, run the Gasparilla clip of Captain JB. Once a year, you get to see me dressed up as a pirate. Kind of. I guess it's pirate. It's like a Gasparilla is Tampa's big festival to say arg to the incredibly rich history that we have here in the Tampa Bay area with pirates. And of course, the Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, named after the pirating culture that we have, the pirating history that we have in the Tampa Bay area. And so there's a big festival every year called Gasparilla for Jose Gaspar, a legend of if you will, of Tampa pirating lore. And so it's a big celebration where you're looking, this is a live picture, by the way, at the right side of your screen. It's from Tampa. And it's everybody gets dressed up as pirates to take over the city. And there's a big pirate ship that comes down the channel, and they quite literally take over the city. Okay, it's the most incredible thing you'll ever see. They take over the city, they hold the mayor hostage, they get the key to the city, and the pirates have Tampa for a day. It's great fun. It's a lot of drunk people, really. That's what Gasparilla is, like Mardi Gras, but pirates. But it's a great deal of fun. We do live coverage of it. And so it's become a thing around here where as I anchor our live coverage, I do so dressed up as a pirate. Or kind of. I'm like the stream captain, so I captain the stream, and so I get dressed up as somebody who would fit in with that era. So yeah. Wow. Lil Patty says hello from Chiefs Kingdom. Patrick Mahomes is the real deal. He is. Hello. Oh, wow. Olivia says, #KJB, what do you like to do most and suggest personally for mental health except cats? I will tell you, I'll take a page out of my wife's book. I have, what we have done, my wife and I, we need to be doing it more. It's hard, but what we try to do is find time to go for walks in our neighborhood, and we leave our phones at home. You will be surprised at how therapeutic and mentally relaxing it is to just go for a walk. Some people will run and listen to music. That's great too. Exercise is so important. That's another thing I would say, Olivia, is that exercise is so important. But exercise is also something that requires routine and schedule. And look, in the news industry, it's very hard for us to find routine and scheduling because news is unpredictable. So exercise is something that I want to do more, and I'd like to have a consistent schedule to do. And I do exercise when I have the opportunity to do so. But as far as just mental health, going for a great walk, leaving your phone at home, bringing somebody with you that you love, and having good conversation is extraordinarily therapeutic, especially when you live in an area just like, something as beautiful as Tampa Bay. Porcupine Pancake Art, that name. #KJB, be in the moment. Yeah, just be in the moment. Live in the now. Haley A says, #KJB, a dream car. Mine is an Aston Martin DB9. I am not a car aficionado. But I'm not a sports car guy. I'll say that. I would drive something that is extremely enjoyable to ride. I don't need to go 140 miles an hour. I would like a car that's got like luxury and stuff like that, but it needs to be practical as well for me to live in. So I hope I don't disappoint you. I don't really have a dream car. I think what Tesla's doing is very special. And seeing what they're doing with the electric cars. There's one really cool car too, like is it like Lucid Air? That looks just absolutely stunning, and they're making like luxury electric vehicles. I think they're very, very cool. And with gas prices being as high as they are right now, I'm regretting getting a new gas vehicle a couple of years back. I picked up a Volvo. Man, it would be really nice to not have to pay $5.26 right now for a gallon of gas. So my dream car right now is electric. Loretta says, sit at night and admire the stars. Gala. Favorite dessert. Maybe I'll make it for our 4th of July barbecue. My favorite dessert. I like to cook. I like to cooking is just a very therapeutic thing for me. But my favorite, if I'm at a restaurant and I'm ordering like that, I see that comment. We're going to put that comment next. But if I'm at a restaurant and I'm getting a really good dessert, like a favorite dessert of mine, creme brulee. Yeah. And then I'm going, probably a close second is I've been introduced to what real key lime pie is. Outrageous when you get it right. Miss Headlines, #KJB, are you going to get a lightning bolt shaved into your head like Josh? Have you guys seen WFLA Josh on Twitter? Do I have I think I have like a sound effect here for this. Hold on. Where is it? Is it this one? There it is. So the story goes, Josh Benson was brave enough to have a barber from Tampa come on TV to put a lightning bolt, to do a haircut with a lightning bolt etched into the back of his haircut. It didn't go according to plan. It didn't. Poor Josh. In fact, it was awful. All things considered, it was absolutely awful, and might have been a prank. And to be serious for a second, it was really terrible for that to have happened. And why somebody would do that is really, it just stinks. But Josh did what Josh does. He's a class act. He owned it, and he tried to have some fun with it. I mean, I think, he was, of course, really bothered by the fact that somebody would do that to you. Like when you trust them to give you a good haircut and they don't put a lightning bolt in, they put something else. We still don't know what he did. We still don't know what that looks like. You can go over to WFLA Josh and you can see it. Jimmy Fallon poked fun at it too. I mean, of course, because it's funny. It's funny that it happened, but it's also like, don't do that. That barber, man, don't. That wasn't cool. And so, big round of applause though for Josh, because he handled it like a champ, like a pro, and it's growing in now. It's almost gone. But if you go to WFLA Josh on Twitter, you'll see what happened. All right. Yeah, no, Audrey says #KJB was not a lightning bolt. No, folks, I think it's time for us to get going. Ella says #KJB, do you know any German words? What's German word for goodbye? Oh, I can't say that. How about for farewell? I don't know how to pronounce. Oh, wait, I can hear it. Abschied? Or. Oh, I can't say that. I can't say that. Or how about Das Lebewohl, which is, I think, goodbye in German? Ella, did I have that right? I say farewell to all of you with some very, very primitive and probably butchered German. To everybody joining us on stream, please take care of yourself. If you want more coverage on Gabby Petito, the Brian Laundrie story, just go back in this live stream if you missed perhaps the discussion that we had with Brian Entin, very enlightening, an opportunity for us to kind of do a debrief and discuss the story at a more granular level. So a good opportunity for us to re-examine the massive developments that occurred on Friday, June 24th, 2022. I'd like to thank all of our commenters for joining us with #KJB. Really appreciate it. And again, you can go to WFLA.com, the WFLA app, for more on this story. Before I go, as a reminder, I won't go on my full rant. I am on TikTok now. I haven't made any videos yet. But if you'd like to follow me, I'm going to start making some videos on TikTok, because someone's got to do some good, credible, honest work. And not saying that there aren't people that do, but I've done it on previous streams, not going to do it on this one. I've gone on my TikTok rant. I have decided to make a TikTok account at WFLAJB to start making some good content where you guys can rely on it being rooted in reality and fact-driven and truth-based. So please, you can follow me at Instagram or on Facebook or on TikTok. Yes, TikTok, at WFLAJB. Across all platforms. The very latest on this story on Brian Laundrie, Gabby Petito, the Notebook Confession, and more. You can find it right now on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. You can click on the link in the description on this video or in the pinned comment as well. It'll take you over to WFLA.com, the WFLA app. Please do me a favor before we go, really quick. Give me some feedback on what we thought of these mental health breaks. We did it with Brian Entin. We did it one here at the end of the stream. Do you like, I'll put it in a poll here really quickly. Let's just create a really quick poll. Should our #KJB live streams include mental health breaks when needed? Or how about just that. Let us know. Give us some feedback always want to do streams that you guys respond to and that resonates with you. So please let us know. Give us feedback. I'm always looking to do more story. There's some more good we need to do in the world of missing persons cases and having good, productive dialogue on the stories that we cover, and that is really one of the biggest mission statements of WFLA Now, is to feature what you have to say, talk about your comments, talk about the stories that we cover in a way that is productive and constructive. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, the very latest on this story on Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie, you can find it on WFLA.com, the WFLA app.